coffee, and yeah, I just keep going all day long. It's a thing, you know. When you're an addict, you have to drink lots and lots and lots of coffee, and I don't know what else you want me to say about coffee. Sorry?
Like a timer on it where everything's ready to go, and then like it hits like whatever time, and it just starts brewing.
No, I use an espresso system, so it's nice and simple. It's drop in a pot, hit a button, go have a piss, come back, coffee's ready. Nice and simple, easy to deal with. Actually, really happy because my local store started carrying Starbucks pods, which I have missed Starbucks coffee in this country.
You guys don't have Starbucks out there?
We got like 3 or 4 scattered around major cities. It's not a. They tried to expand here and it just didn't work, and like they're on their last legs. But yeah, I worked at Starbucks for a long time, so I have a fondness for Verona, and now I get to drink it every day, which is great.
So how many cups?
3 or 4 between 4 a.m. and 11, and probably about another 8 during the rest of the day. Yeah, that sounds about right for me.
It's a lot of coffee.
Well, I've had 4 since we've been sitting here talking, and I've got 2 more on the desk ready to go.
4. 4 cups.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Probably explains why my bladder is so weak.
I'm going to start her up.
Be my guest. I have nothing more to say about coffee, though. I love coffee. It's a wonderful, wonderful creation, and I thank the goddess every day for it. And I pay homage to her by holding my cup up, staring at it lovingly, and then inhaling the contents frequently, repetitively.
Nice. Welcome, everybody. I think what actually happened in YouTube then is it started me on a new stream, which is not okay. So we started with a potato. I'd like to welcome everybody to the show, Amigos and Co. As you can see here, we have Mr. Legion Vapes, all the way from central or northern New South Wales. Is it northern New South Wales?
Yes, north.
Northern New South Wales, very far away from me. We also have Mr. Chris Vandal, hailing from the great state of Nevada.
It's so great.
It is very great. And of course, my name's Adam. Nice to meet you all. If you're new to the stream, we have had a little bit of a situation today. Our 2 guests, Miss Jennifer Berger Coleman, is currently stuck on a San Francisco highway. There is a truck on fire, and they have cut the lanes. So she is currently sitting in a stationary car and cannot join us, but we're hoping that she will get home soon and come onto the stream because she's very disappointed. Also,
Adam, if I can just interject.
Yes.
I do not believe we are live.
You're not live.
We're not live.
No. Did you
that was a really good intro. Good work there.
Yeah, we're live.
I have.
That's us there.
Well, it's not showing up on mine.
No. Well, mine just says waiting.
Yeah, tick begins. You're live.
Huh. Well. What's up, guys?
Yeah. We also have a bit of a situation. Dr. Marewa Glover, our also esteemed guest, is also not in our Zoom room. So I don't really know what to say there, but we're very appreciative that everyone would come out to check our guests and join in the conversation. We thank you for coming, but I'm a little bit shocked and disappointed. I don't know what to say. Yeah, but of course we're hoping that everything's okay and that they will join us at some stage. Everyone is probably still in the old stream. Yeah, that's right, Rob. I don't know what happened with YouTube then. I had everything right, and of course it decided to chuck me onto another stream. So, yeah.
I found it. There we are.
Yeah.
We are indeed on a new stream. Now I have to play around with Windows.
Yeah, I don't know why that happened. YouTube, it just loves doing that. When you double, triple check, I even check with Chris, and then I go, yeah, cool, let's just start this. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, you know what? It's not an Amigos show if something doesn't go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I am set.
All right.
So yeah, here we are. There are three of us. Our special guest is MIA. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
I assume it's something very relevant and very important. And hope.
Oh, and here she is.
Hello.
Am I late?
A little bit.
Ah, I thought it was 3 o'clock New Zealand time.
No, but that's okay. It's totally okay. We only just started.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't be silly. Welcome.
Just shut the blind because it's nice and sunny here.
Nice. Yeah, we also had a bit of a folks in the chat. Dr. Marewa Glover, thank you very much for joining us. We've had a little bit of a situation. Jennifer Berger Coleman, who was also to come on the show, has she's stuck on a San Francisco highway because the truck is in flames and they've cut all 4 lanes. So
Wow.
she's 3 hours away from home apparently, as far as Google Maps is concerned. So yeah. But thank you for joining us. I'm sorry if there was a time delay situation there.
Yeah, this time difference thing. I thought it was 3 o'clock New Zealand, and it's only, so I was zooming in to just check that everything was going to work. But okay.
I think we're good. It's perfect. Everything's fine.
Good.
Awesome. I want to. There might be a few people in the chat that
I got it.
possibly have heard of you, Dr. Glover. I think also in the last couple of days, I've gone back to have a look at your body of work over the last many years that you've been doing what you do, and I would actually really like to read the piece that was on the latest thing. I think that everyone has probably seen is Dr. Glover's work with Mr. Carl Phillips, another very esteemed health professional. Preventing risk of smoking-related disease among adults versus preventing initiation to vaping. It's a simplistic lifeboat thinking, not applicable. This was, would you call it a paper or a piece?
Well, Carl called it an essay, and I just find myself sometimes, seeing a cartoon or see a situation in pictures. So
yeah,
I get them drawn up, and then I thought, oh no, this really needs to go out with an explanation and more. And I'm just so busy, and Carl is so fantastic at explaining, these philosophical dilemmas.
Yeah.
So I was in Washington at the GTNF, and Carl and I caught up afterwards, and I showed him that, and he laughed a little bit, and then I said, do you want to write the essay, and I've done the cartoon. Otherwise, I'd put the cartoon out. I just don't have time to talk to everything. Yeah, so
it's in monochrome, unfortunately, but
and of course it's on my website, for people to download. And look, I'm happy for people to use the cartoon. If you guys want the file of the color cartoon as an A4 that you can use to put up and talk to, I'm happy to send that to you, and anyone else as well. Just email me. But so the whole thing about think of the children and this fear mongering that's going on about vaping, particularly in America at the moment, following the contaminated dabbing carts, the cartridges that are sold for vaping cannabis, so they call it dabbing. So, and how that's being exploited by the anti-vaping crowd to demonize vaping, scare people off nicotine vaping. But I was thinking about think of the children. What I really hate about it is it's as if children live on their own. They're make all their own decisions about what food they're going to buy and what food they're going to eat for dinner, and whether or not they're going to experiment with vaping or alcohol. It's as if people don't realize, they think children are not affected by what's happening to their parents. Like if the parents are stressed out or in financial strain or being threatened with losing what has been for many people a lifesaver. And it's as if the children live as completely autonomous little beings and are unaffected by even the loss of a parent. There's nothing worse for a child than losing their parent to a smoking related illness. But some of particularly the prohibitionist anti-tobacco people, they would rather save a child from exposure to cigarette smoke a few years of their young childhood life when they're very healthy, growing human beings. They would rather save them from that than save them from having to go through the grief of their parent dying early while they're a child. So it's that sort of thing. And I just got this picture of, well, in the lifeboat, who do you throw overboard? And so we've got the lifeboat, it's packed too many people in there. And then, oh, look, there's a storm coming. And the ship, there's this lightning and waves. And they're like, there's too many of us. We're all going to die. We're all going to die if someone isn't chucked overboard. And they draw straws. And some poor bloke gets a short straw and is thrown overboard and eaten by sharks.
Yeah.
And eaten by sharks. Next picture.
Sorry.
So he's eaten by sharks, and next, the storm just blows over, and there's a ship, and they're all saved. There's this, and they go, oh, well, we didn't need to throw him overboard, and they're like, oh, don't worry about it. He's only a smoker anyway, And that's sort of how it is. People are not caring that smokers are real people. They're parents. They have children. For me, my priorities have always been pregnant mums, long-term smokers, and people who already are starting to feel symptoms of smoking-related illness. They're second, and parents of young children, they're third. Those are my priority groups. Those are the people we should be helping to quit smoking in that order. And, the rest of the sector have it all a different way around. So I did the cartoon, and Carl wrote this really great essay and explained about this is a classic philosophical, example that's
the trolley
debated.
problem, right?
And the trolley problem, as well.
Yeah. I admit that I have heard of that situation before, but I actually had to look up the proper explanation of what the trolley problem is. I can struggle to try and explain it unless you would like to explain it better than me.
Well, I had to look it up as well, but basically, a train is going down the tracks, and if it keeps going down that same track, it's going to hit 5 workers and they're all going to die. You are standing beside one of those levers that can head the train off down a different track. But oops, there's a person working on that track and one person will die. And so the dilemma is, which one do you choose? Do you let the train continue rattling down the track and 5 people will be killed? Or do you pull the lever and the train goes down and one person is killed? So it's a really interesting sort of discussion to have, in a group or if you're dinner party or whatever.
Yeah.
And people don't like to, but if I pull the lever, then that one person that died, it's my fault because I pulled the lever.
Yeah.
So people are less likely to want to pull the lever. But if they don't pull the lever, hey, 5 people are going to die versus 1.
Yeah.
But somehow that there's some kind of moral decision, or they feel, no, that wasn't my fault. But yeah, I tend to be like bystanders who stand by and watch something happen are as culpable, you know.
Well,
So
it's a perfect example, I think, or an analogy of what's going on right now. Do we save the kids or do we save the existing, people in the citizens? So it's I have a whole list of like all of the events, because somebody said, well, it was actually me. I put in a post. It had been a year since we'd spoken to you, and I don't think it's been quite a year, but it's been almost a year because we did repost the original conversation back in April, but I think we actually spoke before then. So it's almost been a year, but in Vapors terms, that's like 3 years to me. So I was trying to think of chronologically, like some of the big events that have happened, I guess even in the last 6 months, let alone the last 8 weeks, and it's a huge amount of developments, information, change of that, the trolley changing its course. There's so many things that have gone on.
yeah, there has been a lot, and particularly it's, I was remembering how it was when I first met Dave Dawn, and he used to do VTNZ, Vapor TV, and that crew. And some of them they've moved on now. There's still some of them vape, some of them don't. It's that whole thing of a lot of people have their life turned around and changed by vaping and get heavily involved, and some people burn out. And Dave's re-emerged like the phoenix as Fat Lad on a Bike, and so his whole YouTube thing is now Fat Lad on a Bike. And I was thinking how what you guys are going through now in the States, it's just fabulous to see the community coming together, growing, vapors pouring onto Twitter, hammering the White House call line, and really getting very, very active and lobbying and speaking up, having a voice. And that's, the UK vapors went through that also. It is almost like 12 years ago. And they also had a fight there. And you can see, UK Public Health England at the forefront of, come on, switch to vaping. They really see it now as kind of an in-game strategy to get rid of all smoking. But I think what you guys are doing is huge because of the impacts of, especially in the States, what's happening is huge because of the way other countries follow what the States does. So luckily, New Zealand was going the way of the UK. I say going the way of, because 2 days after Trump said he was going to ban flavors in vaping e-liquids, our Associate Minister of Health, Jenny Salesa, announced that she was going to ban flavors.
Yeah.
And we were on track to have a progressive, as progressive as the UK, supporting people to switch over to vaping, with, having all the cessation services. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them are now happy to try and help people who want to quit smoking via vaping. In the quit line even advertises there's lots of different ways. So we'd come a long way, and now it's just because of what Trump said. We feel like we're getting this backpedaling happening, and also just the whole misrepresentation of the dabbing deaths, the contaminated dabbing deaths, and how that's been misreported. And how the public's been misinformed, and that scaremongering, that's just shocking. And people here have been affected by that.
Totally. I want to go back to Jenny Salesa just quickly. I listened to the situation that you did with Fig, Patrick, and Kevin, the 4-hour marathon of talking.
Masterclass. I think it was a masterclass.
Yeah. There was a lot of thought processes and information in that, and some very Things that I guess took me by surprise, like to hear your opinion. 2025 is the date that apparently is the smoke-free situation for NZ was a goal set. Is that right? And then I heard you say, zero is not achievable and not realistic. Would you like to unpack that a little bit for our viewers, perhaps?
Yeah, so the 2025, first we were sort of, I say the tobacco control sector here, were pushing for 2020. So that's just around the corner. And our smoking prevalence rate, daily smoking we've just had some stats come out recently, down to 13% for the whole of the country. But if you look at the Indigenous Māori population, we're still sitting around 32%. So, are we going to be anywhere near 5%, let alone zero, in just a few months' time? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And Pacific Island people who live in New Zealand, quite sizable chunk of our population, they have had hardly any movement downwards at all in their smoking prevalence. So it's that whole thing of all of these countries just ignoring the smoking prevalence in marginalized or minority groups and among mental health consumers. So we initially had 2020 and the 5%. Now, how we came to that was that in 2006, our census stats showed that only 3% of medical doctors and only 3% of church ministers smoke cigarettes. So therefore, this is how the logic goes, therefore, it is feasible that people, you could get to 3%, but not zero, because if even 3% of medical doctors smoke and 3% of church ministers smoke, well, then zero is probably not realistic anytime soon. Well, that was 2006 figures. But, straight away, I'm sure you guys would go, yeah, but not everyone's a medical doctor or has that level of education or privilege or income level. And not everyone's a church minister either So why on earth would you set a goal, ours is 5% or below, based on two elite groups that have a lot of reasons to not be smokers and a lot of support to not have the stress and marginalization and exclusion and all of those stresses that the group that predominantly smokes does have to live with. I really think that, so in that sense, it was not based on any scientific modeling. It was a stab in the dark or into the future. It was, and so the government in their response were very good. They called it an aspirational goal. So they would adopt it as an aspirational goal because it isn't a scientifically derived goal.
Yeah, it's just, and also, I'm not sure that I've ever seen a church minister smoke before. Just as a weird, weird point there.
Oh no, we have. I think Māori population's around 15%. The Pacific Island population used to be around 9%, and some Pacific Island church ministers smoke. They are elders and highly respected in their communities, and they come in the islands. The men's smoking rates used to be much higher, so not an unusual thing for them.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, let's change tact a little bit. I'd like to talk about the Wall Street Journal and Miss Amelia Howard's situation on Twitter recently and how that has exploded. I would consider myself someone who was on Twitter a lot. I maybe not as tweeting as much as I was, 3 or 4 weeks ago, because there's a lot more of people that are more eloquent in their tweets at particular, or the people that need to be tweeted at and sharing the information. So I've been just reading a lot and researching a lot of the articles that are going on there. even in 2 days, that whole situation with Amelia Howard and her responding and everyone else being involved in that, how do you see that whole situation exploding?
They're not a bot.
Yeah.
Well, I think the whole discrediting of consumers has been, it goes a long way back. And I'm reading, finally, at last, got around to reading Christopher Snowden's book, Killjoys, and the one I'm reading at the moment is The History of the Anti-Smoking Movement, as we call it. And I would never have read it before because, he was a pro-smoking person and you don't read outside of the echo chamber. But I'm trying to get up to speed with all of the views and opinions. But there's some interesting stuff in there about the history. So he's looking right back to the very first sort of efforts that occurred even in the late, is it the 19th century? So the late 1800s, he's found recordings in literature of dignitaries or whoever it would be, kings, not liking smoking and things like that. So in some ways, I was surprised to find that some of the strategies that are being used now to discredit smokers and now vapors date way back and were used and probably have been used across many different debates. It's a classic.
Or prohibition, alcohol prohibition.
Yep, but not even that. I mean, I did my master's research was actually in domestic violence and looking at and even within a relationship, if it's a unhealthy and violent abusive relationship, the person who's abusive tries to minimize. That's one of the strategies they do, is minimize your complaint, make fun of you, and basically try to discredit your opinion and belittle and put down. And I see a lot of parallels with there was a model called the Duluth model, which we were using in the domestic violence sector back in the 1900s, not 1900s, in the 1990s. So there's this wheel and there's all these strategies on it. And pretty much I could do another paper on that, and I could go show how all of the strategies that the prohibitionists, the anti-vaping sector are using, you can track back. So in a violent relationship, controlling the money is one.
Yep.
Using, keeping somebody on a pocket money, basically, or we haven't got any money for that, but then you find a big stash in the drawer. Using the children is another one. So actually, even in personal relationships that are abusive, the same strategies are used, and that's belittling consumers, smokers and vapors, discrediting them, and of course the academics that are trying to reveal the benefits of harm reduction. We're also getting targeted with these same tactics of discrediting us and belittling us, and it's just abuse. We're all, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, two of the largest tactics used in warfare is to dehumanize the enemy, because if you make them less than human, they're other, they're different, and then you can justify just about anything that you want. And once you've done that, then anyone that's on their side becomes a traitor.
Yeah, that's right.
Combine those two things, that's exactly what they're doing. When they say we're bots, we're dehumanized. We're not real people. We're not people with valid concerns. And of course, if we're not real, then anyone who's on our side, who's scientifically based, is a traitor. They're working for big tobacco. Both of those techniques are used constantly against us. It's the same thing they did in Vietnam. It's exactly what was done in World War before World War II in Germany.
That's right. So these are really common strategies, you know, in the art of war, and it's just amazing the huge social justice movement and bite back from vapors around the world, but now at the moment, you know, in America, and you know, just the support that you're giving to each other, and you know, the rallies. And I've been reading the tweets, and you know, there's been a few tweets. Sorry, I can't remember whose tweet it was, but it's more of a kind of a thread beginning to happen about, hey, this is actually revealing a bigger problem. And about, somebody tweeted about governments we were never supposed to trust them, you know, like, and just be submissive civilians who take anything. You know, a democracy is about having a say. It's and there was a good article I read this morning, and now I can't remember who put that out. And that was about, you know, democracy is about having a voice, and then each law and each policy, it's some kind of compromise of that. Because people have different opinions. And yeah, but you know, there's a huge difference between what happened to smokers. Smokers were also discredited and were dehumanized and were treated in very similar ways. But the smokers never formed the kind of community that vapors have. There were small efforts. It was mainly sort of individuals, but I guess because, yeah, they just never formed that we're smokers and we're going to fight for our rights. You know, it's really what the vapors are doing. You know, this access to what is for many people going to be a life-saving change and path, to have that blocked off. This is about social justice, and smoking never made it that way. You know, it was, so smokers did just roll over. They internalized that, you know, many smokers internalized that they were bad. They were bad people.
Can I ask?
That's what they were told.
Can I ask the question? Let's forget the whole situation of people talking about the money trail or MSA. You know, why is the concept of harm reduction so hard to for governments to take on board, or for health groups as such?
Well, for tobacco control, it's mainly because of all of the different theories that we have about smoking, and especially about nicotine. So it shifted from being about reducing death and disease by getting people to stop smoking. We needed to get them off the nicotine, because and actually a lot of people are still saying this. They're still saying people smoke for the nicotine, but they die from the tar. So if you really want people to stop smoking, you need to get them off the nicotine. You see, that's the natural kind of logic. And now, of course, you know, there's a lot more openness about, well, the nicotine is not the thing that is killing people. But we spent so many years, decades, demonizing nicotine, believing it was highly, highly toxic, and believing that it does. And now we're getting all of this brain worms and, oh, you know, it's damaging to the developing brain and all of that. So there was, I would say, at least 2, perhaps 3 decades of having that drummed into medical students and nurses and anyone doing public health and psychiatry. And people really still believe a lot of that about nicotine. It's going to take a while to come around to, okay, let's see it outside of the context of smoking, and then reassess what harms are associated with it. So tobacco control became very much about, you know, and I just read Ruth Malone and Smith's latest piece in tobacco control yesterday, a horrid piece. And, in there they say it's about, they say the cause of smoking is that tobacco industry sells cigarettes. Now, anyone who's in business, so that means like, okay, I'm going to go and stick some things in the window and try and sell them, and that's going to cause people to, to buy them. That's not how it works. There's a market. There are consumers. You have customers. You are solving a problem for people. You're giving them something of value that they want. Or, there's just this, they're just ignoring that smoking or vaping or using snus, it serves a function for people. It's solving a problem for people. It's helping them with something. It has value. And that's the cause of why people smoke. They smoke because they have stress. They smoke because they were abused. They smoke because of some trauma. They smoke because it helps them relax, and on and on and on. There's 100 different reasons for each person why smoking is valuable to them.
Mm-hmm.
And this trying to reframe it as, I know what they're doing, and we shouldn't trust the tobacco industry, but get the cause right. It's not that. And you're not going to be able to help people stop smoking if you're not even accepting why they smoke in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that also kind of leads on to my next question is, I'm not sure that I've seen on social media platforms as many people engaging. Vapers are very vocal and passionate about what they do, but I can't keep up. Like literally in the last 6 weeks, I can't keep up with what's going on. And it's an amazing thing to see, because I have to be honest, I'm not sure that I ever envisaged that many people being vocal about the things that are particularly vaping. And I guess this also includes snus and other forms there. But do you see it as a good thing, even though we have so much deceit and misinformation and suppression going on? Is it still a good thing that all of this is happening, because now the masses are starting to understand what's going on with vaping or with smoking, nicotine, everything? Is there a point when the bad information is good information?
I think what is happening is very important, because fake news has been a big problem for a long time, and the propaganda that's coming out of multiple sectors, not just public health. Propaganda is a way of controlling the masses and manipulating their perceptions of what's happening, so they'll vote this way or that way. There's the politicians are supposed to represent us and our views, and there's big changes happening. It's not just in America, it's in New Zealand, Australia, UK, across Europe, and Spain, where people are working it out. They've worked it out, that politicians they're not serving their constituents anymore. And I think it's a fabulous thing, because what we needed was we need people to re-engage with their civil as civilians, and re-engage with civil society and get involved again, and not just leave it to a handful of people who, for whatever reason, have decided to become politicians and make decisions on everybody else's behalf. It's it's a career path, and it's not necessarily well paid, but there's perks, and celebrity is a huge thing people are chasing, especially in this new World Wide Web environment we're in. So we need people to re-engage, and I think the whole denial, the threat of taking vaping away from people, and I've used the same story before about the burning building and public health and politicians standing in front of, blocking the fire exit and basically shutting people in to that way of life and saying, no, there's that whole belief that there's not enough to go around, you know. So, you know, we're quite happy with you dying at the rates you were dying at. And we're back to the lifeboat, you know. Smokers are the ones that are being thrown overboard. They're also conveniently, smokers are disproportionately black, poor, got mental health problems. You know, we don't want them anyway. It's like I just tweeted about Beverly Hills. That policy, they're going to ban all tobacco products. The sale of all tobacco products will be banned in Beverly Hills. That's a proxy way of shutting out people who are undesirable.
The cigar club will still be open though, won't it?
No, people will be able to still smoke. Yeah, I think cigars get an exemption. I think I heard that. But and people, you know, the elites, that the rich that live in Beverly Hills, the people that live in Beverly Hills will still be able to smoke, you know, their joint in their house or their home. But if, you know, and Smith and Malone talk about, they predict and they really hope that this will happen, that there will be this domino effect. It's happened before. This is how tobacco control works. You know, we get one jurisdiction, suck them in, and then they pass some law, and then we go to the next jurisdiction and we say, oh, well, Beverly Hills did it. Oh, well, New Zealand did it, or oh, well, Australia's done it. I mean, Australia just relies on that they're going around saying, we've done this, so should you. Indonesia, Malaysia, you know, every Pacific nation. And so rather than actually providing anybody with any evidence anymore, all they do is say, well, the Auckland City Council has passed this ban on you can't smoke any beaches or footpaths in the town square. You know, they've done that. So Wellington, our capital city, well, you should do it. And so they do. And they go, well, if Auckland City Council done it, they must have read the research. And so there's that domino effect. And Smith and Malone want to see that happen. They predict it will happen with Beverly Hills has sort of set a precedent there, and other jurisdictions will follow. Well, then where do all the smokers and vapors end up living? If they can't afford to drive over to the next suburb, if they don't have a car, if they, you know, or it spreads and you're locked into an area where there's no sales for miles. And okay, you might still have internet sales, but like Adelaide, then they go and ban that.
Yeah.
So there's no end to it. I think a really important message, which I was talking with Fig and Patrick and Kevin about, I think I was, in Ruth's paper, Malone and Smith paper, they're trying to say to tobacco control, don't give ground, don't compromise. We want zero. We want zero sales of smoked, of combustible tobacco products. Go for that. You go for your 100% and you don't give ground. You don't say, oh, okay, well, we'll just ban some of the flavors then. Or, and a lot of vapors are going, oh, yeah, T21. Yeah, it should be banned for anyone under the age of 21, as if people under 21 don't get addicted to cigarettes.
Yep.
You know what? There's no harm reduction for anyone until they get to be 21. Before that, they're allowed to, you know, just smoke all they want. And that's, you know, so I don't like the T21, as I said the other day, and at the GTNF conference. It's like everyone in America's like, yep, ban it for under 21-year-olds. And that, but yeah, I just sort of, if I was 17 or 18 or 19, I'd be like, hey, you know, when do they get to have a voice? And you talked about dehumanizing people. And in New Zealand, we've got politicians, they want to change the age at which you can vote to 16.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They want to, so, okay, you can vote. And this is because we know who they're going to vote for, largely the young people. You know, they like Greens and they like the young MPs. So they know that they're going to get more of the votes. So now they want to change the age before the next election, you know. You know, people, sorry?
Just to that point, if you're able to like give like 16-year-olds the right to vote, but then again, they're going to be voting on things that they won't even be able to take a part in or indulge in, which isn't. So it's very selective choosing.
Yeah, it's so there's things like that happening. Don't give ground, and this is for understanding that policy process. And in my my submission I made on the against banning smoking in cars, which I didn't realize people overseas don't understand. Well, why would you do that? But that's because of the disproportionately high rates of smoking among especially young Māori mums who, you know, 45% of 24-year-olds smoke, 45% of 24-year-old Māori women. And they have their kind of peak fertility. So that's when they're mums. And then they want to ban smoking in cars when children are present and fine them $50. They're also overrepresented among the unemployed and on benefits. And people don't realize that if you have unpaid fines and if you don't turn up to court, your $50 fine goes from $50 to $1,000. And, you know, and it can just like spiral and they could end up in jail. And how's that for the kids? Did you really help? You've just turned that child's life then goes a different way. They're put in care, then they're more at risk of abuse. And I don't like it. It's harming people, and it's largely targeted at a group, a racial minority. So with the policy process in my book, I've got this like picture of a tug of war. And as I said, in a democracy, the policies that pass, the laws that pass are a compromise. They're a compromise of the extreme, whether they're extreme right, extreme left, and everybody in between. So if you care about something, and this is why I really love the more militant vapors, because, yeah, they don't give any ground. They're like out there, and they're like, no. You've got a lot of people who are libertarian coming into this debate, and they're like, hey, it's in the Constitution, and we have rights. You know, you have that in America. In other countries, we don't have that we don't have the same rights as you, and you're using them. And you've got a whole lot of people who maybe didn't even know what their rights were. And so it can turn things around, not just on vaping, but people are waking up and realizing they have power. I've always said, in this tug of war, you outnumber all of the people on the other end, 1,000,000 to 1 now, if not more. And you are the stakeholder. You are the stakeholder. And you have kids as well. So, yeah.
I'm hoping we can get a few more people to tweet at Mr. Hunt and a few other situations here. The AMA even, you know, retweeting, or, you know, I've been using the term parroting the CDC information, or, you know, Health Victoria. There's all sorts of stuff. It's like, okay, you want to put all your trust in these groups, I guess, because that's who you look to give guidance for health, or, you know, for legislation. But there's none of that going on. You know, how are we supposed to, you know, give trust?
People are just so busy. People are so busy they don't have time to, you know, I don't know anything about climate change. It doesn't mean I'm a denier. I don't know anything about it. This is my area, and I've spent all my time staying up to date. You can't know about everything. So if there's a poll on anything to do with the climate, I stand down. I don't have any expertise to comment on that. I need to read the research myself first.
Yeah.
And it could be anything. It could be, should the road be widened or whatever. So we've gone into this kind of time where expertise, intelligence is, what's the word? It's almost a dirty word, As Jenny Salesa said on TV, she's entitled to her opinion. Yes, I am. But a whole lot of people seem to think, no, I'm not. And that's exactly what they feel about vapors and smokers. No, they're not entitled to their opinion. Actually, this is a democracy. Yes, we are. And that's why, though, we vape, we vote, I vote, I vape, I vote is a really great hashtag. It's a movement.
Yep.
And it's a reminder that you have a say. I mean, it's not just on vaping, but hopefully a lot of people will get more civilly involved going forward. It's if something's happening in your local jurisdiction, I don't know what you call them, councils or and they want to do stuff, and it will always be more laws, more taxes, more laws to justify increasing the land tax or the rates or whatever you call them on your property, and then that hikes the rents, and everything goes up all the time.
Yeah.
And it's I hate being the one to say it's all about the money, but when do we put a lid on it? When do we say that's enough? No, that's too many politicians.
Yeah.
No, you're spending too much money. Do we really need that? There was one suburb I lived in, and I walked there at the beach every day. I went down one day. There were all these new shiny rubbish bins, and they'd been, put in with concrete. And I was just like, what a waste of money. There were rubbish bins there before. I can go over to a poor area. They don't even have rubbish bins.
Yeah.
There's no equity either, and it's that sort of thing.
Beautification.
Yeah, these people get into power as a local councillor or on a local committee, and how do you exercise your power? Well, you spend money.
Yeah.
Spend money. Or we're going to start exercising our power and saying, no, stop, because you're hurting people.
Exactly the same at my front. All of my footpath along this whole street was all redone. Why? But there was no need to have it done. They're just using funds for the sake of using funds. Stresses don't go down.
No. Yeah. And everyone is so busy. But no, it's I think we've got an extra 100 followers this week, and I have a list on Twitter, THR Vape Fam. I'm trying to add everybody on, but I'm getting RSI. There's one of the things I was commenting about this morning to Steve, my partner, was how fabulous the creativity is of. I love the creativity. You've got, I don't know how many you've got in America. There are thousands of vape shops, and what do they sell? They vaping products. How many ways can you name your store? When you're all selling the same kind of thing, and there's like haze, and it's really actually fascinating, the creativity, the hundreds of different names that people have come up with for the same basically, product. I mean, you could say the same thing about hamburger stores, but those are like McDonald's, Carl Jr., they're after a name. But vape shops have fantastic, amazing artwork and names. It's just an aside, I think. But it's Dave Dawn and I used to talk about this, that the community that's formed needs, the identity of a vapor. Do people go around going, yeah, I'm a drinker. I'm a drinker. Do we go around going, yeah, we don't do that. So what is it about vaping that's, people used to say, yeah, I'm a smoker, but not in the same way as I'm a vapor. I'm a vapor as an identity in a totally different way to I'm a smoker or I'm a drinker.
Yeah.
I'm a drinker is not an identity. I'm a researcher and I drink champagne. But being a drinker is not an idea. Well, it could be for some people, of course. But vaping is an identity, and identities form, and there's a culture forming around it. And part of that culture is art and music. And I really want to see more of that expression. And in the vape shops, you're seeing it with the artwork and the names. And obviously we had the cloud chasing competitions, the expos. So a huge culture formed around it. And that might be some of the thing that's, some of what is it about vaping that is scaring people so much?
Yeah. Dimitri, actually, when Dimitri Agrafiadis said this morning, he went live and he was saying that his advice to vape stores, whether it be his clients or anywhere in the US, I guess, I mean, the same applies to here in Australia, that, the images is changing. It's, the shops are being less dark and dingy and becoming more open and accepting because of that whole situation, that it's, a 19-year-old, who's been smoking for 4 years already, without his parents' consent, or, your grandfather who's had 40 years of cigarettes, so making it accessible to all of those because of the fact that we're under the microscope right now, I'd like to see, that happening, so more shops are more, if they survive, of course, but being much more open to that larger market, I guess.
Well, it's more welcoming nowadays because, I've barely been vaping for 2 years now, and I went to a vape shop a couple years before that, and it was not intimidating, but it was just, I'm not gonna lie, I did not like it. It didn't feel welcoming. It wasn't cool. Not like cool, but I didn't go in there. I didn't have a good time. Continue to smoke cigarettes. I started working. This is going back to Dr. Glover's point. I do photography. I got offered a job at Local Vape. Ended up taking vape pictures. I was still smoking cigarettes at the time. Got into the community. Got to be a part of it. And then since then, I've been able to stop smoking cigarettes and be welcome into the community, and then be a part of stuff like this with you guys and meet other amazing people. And like you're saying, you would say I smoke, but you wouldn't be like, oh, I'm a smoker, like a badge of honor.
Yeah, it's said kind of hushed. Oh, I'm a smoker. Yeah.
Yeah, So it's a huge thing. It's about the people that are part of it,
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's like being a Greens, Greens party, or belonging to a political party. Being a vapor it's not for everybody an identity, and they don't want to belong to the cultural community as such. But what's developed is that it's a social justice movement, and so and there's a fairly deep level of importance to what you're doing, and you're not just fighting for the right to quit smoking in a particular way or enjoy a different product. You're fighting for truth, and you're fighting corruption at really high levels. And even I just feel sometimes I'm constantly amazed at how far the corruption goes. For the World Health Organization to be telling governments around the world to ban these things, ban e-cigarettes.
And of course, India.
Yeah, like India has now. And for Bloomberg, the Bloomberg funding and the conditions that come with that. And people give me a hard time and say, oh, yeah, I've been bought by tobacco because I'm funded by the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World, and because even though they're an independent 501c in the States and under law cannot benefit their donors, and the donor being Philip Morris, so to some people I'm like, well, they've blacklisted me here. The Ministry of Health in New Zealand have blacklisted me. No one's allowed to have anything to do with me anymore. And they say, they sent a letter out saying you can get your advice somewhere else. Well, actually, no, they can't. But okay, that's so we're fighting something far worse than somebody's not going to be able to get strawberry flavor anymore. This is the implications of it. People are losing trust in the public health system. And so why do we have this whole anti-vaxxer thing happening? People don't trust doctors anymore. They don't know what to believe anymore. Is it true? Is it fake news? This will have serious implications for health, not just in smoking, but in obesity, in vaccinations. And, we have a measles epidemic happening here. And everyone's going, oh, why did this happen? Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to see a lot more of it if you don't start telling consumers the truth and putting information out there and earning trust back. And the only way to get trust back is with integrity and truth. And the World Health Organization is telling lies about vaping products.
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right. I've actually said a number of times before that I think that the whole anti-vax movement is directly related to reefer madness, because they told us that it would kill us. They told us it would damage us. And they spun so many lies when we were kids. And then we grew up and we all smoked pot and we all survived. And none of that happened. We went, well, you lied to us all that time. What else are you lying about? We lost faith and we lost trust. And as soon as that happened, boom, the anti-vax movement just became huge because, no faith, no trust. We'll find our own way. I think exactly what they're doing now, it's just vapor madness. It's going to have the same kind of effect. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, the world has changed with the internet. The access people have to information, not just from government sources, but from, via Facebook, via Karen. We had that thread go around about, it was a little cartoon. Now Karen's the expert, Karen on Facebook. And, and she's telling everyone, on all her friends on Facebook, like, whether or not you should vaccinate your child, or whether or not you should vape, or, whether or not you should do a low-carb, healthy fat diet, or a Pritikin diet, or a fasting. And, people believe their friends. They're going to believe, Karen's my mate, she must know. And so it's this whole dumbing down. Also, that other thing that's happened is, as I was sort of saying, the breakdown in the academy and in the university system, the commercialization of universities, that's led to basically bums on seats. That's what matters, and not so much the quality. There are still some fantastic universities out there that prioritize science, knowledge, and teaching, critical thought and creating scientists. And then there's just a whole lot where there are lecturers and professors, and for them it's all about pushing their ideology down people's throats. And I know I've worked in a university, I've had to rewrite courses, and I tell you, it's and students have a lot more power too, so if they don't like what a professor's saying, then they can complain, and it's all become really litigious and competitive. So we're now paying for that. There are people out there with PhDs, they shouldn't have them. People get a PhD. I know several people have been given the title professor. They didn't go up through the ranks and have to earn it via publications and research and years of work, like I did. They got given it. It was like a job title. That's not what a professor is. But,
It is actually.
So,
oh, I'm sorry.
We need. We kind of really need an inquiry, certainly in New Zealand, into universities and the standard of education that's dropping in there.
I always talk about this story, and this will be like the third or fourth time I've mentioned it on our stream. But I've recently befriended a small group of med students who come into my daily job, and you know, I finally plucked up the courage to ask them about, you know, what happens when you know, we have our medical fraternity here in Australia, and then, you know, you've got another country who's done research in something, and, you know, let's just say that the major group in our country is, you know, not on board with that way of thinking or the research or even what's happening in the US. Like, it's just outright, we don't know enough, you know. Well, what's the problem there? And, you know, and the answer was, well, too much red tape, legislation, not enough funds. You know, like I was just gobsmacked by that answer, you know. And I was like, okay, so doesn't that interest you? And it's like, it doesn't matter anymore, you know, about the student or that person. You know, they were talking about the whole more political situation that stops the funding or stops the research or stops the, you know, any further you know, discussion or going into that situation. I didn't know what to say, because I was like, these people are our future, you know. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been in tobacco control for 30 years, and so I'm now seeing a new generation of health promotion workers working in the sector, and there's a big difference from before, and they're not as questioning. They just take what they're told, and they're easily manipulated.
This is in a time when we have more information than ever before. That surprised me for you to say that.
No, but the problem is there's so much information that people can't. We now have a flood of, you know, more. It's like pollution in a way,
Right.
and people don't have the time. It's like I'm saying, well, I don't have the time to go and become an expert in what's happening to the environment.
Think or believe. It's easier that way for a lot of people, because, like you said, there's not enough time in the world to learn everything.
Yeah, and so there's information coming at us through Facebook, Twitter, the TV, radio, YouTube, and all of these channels. The other thing is that, especially with YouTube, I mean, it is really a revolution. You know, the ability to communicate around the world is now in the hands of anybody. Yeah. Anybody with a mobile phone, anybody who can get connected to the internet can talk to the world, and they are. Yeah. And they're saying a lot of stuff, and a lot of it is a heap of shit. But people, you know, where is the filter? Where is the editor?
Yeah.
The newspapers, the traditional print newspapers, and they've all had to go online. The TVs here had to start doing Facebook Live because we'd all stopped watching them. They don't look at like their content and why we're not watching you anymore because of your content.
Yeah. Or the narrative.
Yeah. And so people have left TV, they've left the newspapers. Those businesses are struggling to stay alive. And now we're listening to, you know, so what we need is like some kind of, how do you know somebody's credible? Who do you choose to listen to? So in New Zealand, you know, they've the anti-vaping people have put out all this stuff to discredit me, and you know, so there's now people who are like, they're not going to listen to me. That's what they want. They don't want people listening to me. They want them, and so I keep coming back to it's Mockingjay. You know the movie Mockingjay.
Yep.
It's all about manipulating the public's perception, appearing to be legitimate and credible, and it's all about, a lot of people want celebrity because you get influence, and it's very interesting to watch, and it's we've got a lot to work out as people, as humans, and as global society, what we're going to do about fake news. And Facebook, Twitter, all of these platforms are being put under a lot of pressure to shut down certain speech, you know.
Yeah.
We don't have the same constitution as America and New Zealand, and there's big arguments here about free speech. There's Massey University, where I was a professor, they've just been raked over the coals because they cancelled a talk which was going to be given, I think it was about trans, very controversial topic, and they cancelled the talk. Well, this is this loss of academic freedom. And, you know, I remember I've fought lots of causes and count myself as a LGBT part of that community, and I fought for gay visibility and lesbian visibility. I've fought these fights before, and now people are going like, they want to stop people talking about stuff, and I'm like, oh no, because they can turn around. That's what they did. That's what they did to gays and lesbians. That's what they do to Indigenous people. And now the very people who want to shut people out and shut them up and stop them from talking are the white elite academics who are left, who are supposedly progressive. And they're like, no, if you speak against trans, then that's hate speech. If you, I don't know, there's all sorts of them. But, you know, I think we need to be really worried about that. And people have been they're getting blocked on Twitter, not blocked, but banned or shadow banned, which is when you're tweeting, but no one's getting it. They're not getting your tweets and you don't know until someone says, hey, I haven't seen any tweets from you for a while. So that's happening to some of the vape family.
I can speak to that personally.
Yeah.
I do a couple of business pages for my job where I do social media, and I do our brands on there. And as soon as a lot of the stuff started coming out, we would go from having a visibility of a massive amount of people, like 200,000 today, to less than 10.
Yeah. So
and you get all your analyticals. So it's a very real thing.
Yeah. So this is, you know, there's a lot of effort going into how can we control this? How can we, you know, and I think every citizen needs to be very concerned about that. Today it's vapors, tomorrow it could be, you know, the gays might be lesbian and gay again, or they can turn on, and who are they anyway?
Yeah.
They try to discredit anything you come to and push you off to the sidelines where they don't address any issues that could be beneficial. And then when you try to speak up for yourself because you've been ignored for so long, you have no foundation to stand on.
Yeah, and so we're back to people like Bloomberg and, you know, that the media moguls who own all the media in Australia. And so it comes back to some millionaire behind this has said, look, I don't want to see any of that on any of the businesses I own, any of the media channels or platforms. I don't want to see anything about lesbians, you know, and so suddenly, or tweet or vaping. Is that what's happening?
Or even like even with Steve, you know, Steve reviews, you know, being demonetized simply because he's, you know, on YouTube because he's doing a review on a vape product. I mean, YouTube's decision to go, okay, you know, like we're just going to demonetize everybody from that. And I mean,
I called my Centre of Research Excellence, Indigenous Sovereignty and Smoking, because that's my thesis, that's what I'm studying. And Facebook won't let us boost our posts because we have the word smoking in our title.
What?
Yeah. So they go, if you were, say you had a smoking cessation charity or something like that, you could write to different businesses in New Zealand, anything to do with alcohol or tobacco or gambling, nobody will give you money.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're about helping people stop smoking. It doesn't matter. I've got smoking in there. I can't boost my posts.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, I know Chris has been putting it into chat, but we have your website running on a banner along the bottom of the screen, and your handle on Twitter. So everyone, I'm sure the people in chat already know who you are, but just in case, you can see, you know, Dr. Glover's work on her publications are downloadable and through the website there. It's all on the banner. I'm sure Chris and Steve are on it. I haven't looked at chat at all, so yeah. I wanted to ask, has there been any questions in chat? Anyone?
Not really, not that I've seen. A lot of commentary, but not many questions.
Yeah.
Oh, good commentary or
All good. We have great people.
it's I mean, I think these, what you guys do, these types of forums, because I really think what we need now is people to get smart, not that they're not smart, educated about how to lobby, what's really going on, what's the truth. So I'm on Clive Bates has got a nicotine policy email list, and he does this fantastic, voluntarily just does a summary of all the research articles about vaping that have come out, and one he sends them, comes on a Sunday for me, and it's like 50. You can't possibly, I can read an article with breakfast and another one with later on in the day, but you can't possibly keep up with that. So we need people to kind of do these, distill it down. What's the essence? What do I really need to get out of this? Is this paper worth reading, or is it total junk? It's junk, but we need to know what they're saying because they're powerful. For example, the Smith and Malone paper, Ruth Malone is the editor of the Tobacco Control Journal. So it's useful to understand where these people are coming from, what ideology they are pushing, and because what won't get published in that journal, what journals should we be looking for? Hopefully you'll be looking at Harm Reduction Journal, because I'm the tobacco section editor of that, and any researchers out there looking to submit, please submit. The Harm Reduction Journal has actually had a letter saying that they should sack me because of my funding.
I didn't want to ask about that because I didn't see that recently, and that's why I wasn't sure whether your position was still there. Please excuse my ignorance.
The Harm Reduction Journal as tobacco section editor. Yep, I'm still doing that. I mean, these sorts of jobs, you don't get paid for them. And, all of that sort of editing for a journal, considering journal articles that are sent in, asking people to review it. The reviewers don't get paid either. It's all voluntary work done by academics. It's part of academics' role. I'm not in a university anymore, but I see it as very important, especially because a recent paper, a colleague told me it took them 6 months to get the paper accepted and published, which is actually kind of fast compared to some disciplines. It was a really important paper for vaping. And this is the thing, if you submit to a journal that's anti-vaping, then it's kind of like the, what was it called? The shadow ban.
Yeah.
Your paper could just sort of float along there, not get sent out for review because people are busy, because we're doing this in moments caught between other work. And so it's important to know what journals want articles. The other thing is that the Harm Reduction Journal is about harm reduction, and we accept papers from anyone, including industry, and that's seen as pretty bad. So
we have a question for, I believe it's going to be more for you guys on the panel. DIY Down Under says that they heard of a flavor ban bill for New Zealand that was going to be put forward. Do any of you have information on that at the moment?
So we're waiting for the draft bill to come out, and every it's like, oh yeah, it's coming out. I thought it was supposed to come out last week. I think what happened, especially after what happened in America, the contaminated dabbing deaths, and Jenny Salesa, reacting to Trump's suggestion, taking that as okay, if he did it, I can do it, and people aren't going to think it's my personal view, which I think it is her personal view. So the bill's gone back for a rewrite, I believe. They had to go back and add in a whole lot more restrictions. So I think I'm expecting it to come out with, as she said, she's going to ban flavors all except for tobacco, mint, and menthol. And also she wants to put limits on the nicotine concentration on freebase and salt. So it seems there's going to be a different limit on each of the different types of nicotine e-liquid. Those are the two main ones. I fully expect that there'll be some new more restrictive things than what we were expecting in there. On a positive note, ASH New Zealand, in collaboration with End Smoking New Zealand, have put out what they called the Surge Report. Clive Bates and Professor David Sweena from Canada, co-authors on that. Really fantastic. I totally endorse that. If anyone is thinking of making a submission, anyone from New Zealand watching this, please look at the Surge Report, take guidance from that. You can say in your own submission, I endorse the ASH and Smoking NZ Surge Report, and then just add extra. If you're a vapor, you tell your story. Why were flavors so important, and talk about the nicotine levels. I've met people here in the early days, like 2015, who, and back then we didn't have the nicotine salts products. So yeah, he was vaping 50 milligrams. That's pretty high in a pretty good mod. People are different. Everyone's different. And the most important thing is that people get the right level of nicotine to enable them to completely switch over. So any day now. Also, Parliament is running out of parliamentary days for this year. There is, I guess, a remote possibility that they're going to run out of calendar, and it won't come out for comment. Maybe it might have to be pushed over to next year's calendar.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting time in December when the trade show is on, for the Oceania trade show, if something comes out before then. But
yeah, no, I'm really looking forward. I'll definitely get along to the Oceania Vape Day. That was a fantastic event last year, and we had e-liquid manufacturers from the US as well, and we had guys over from Australia. So it's going to be a great event.
Yeah. Is there always a focus of like advocacy at those trade shows? We see it in the US, but for the Southern Hemisphere, I mean, the trade shows are certainly fewer, but advocacy as part of that. Is that something that I saw a photo of you at the event last year. So will that be a focus a little bit this year as well?
Yeah, we had a panel last year, and Vaping Bogan was over, and definitely we have. I'm pretty sure it will be. I think Sunday's going to have more of a focus on advocacy, and I think there is here definitely with Jenny Celeste's announcement of banning flavors, we do have a whole lot more vapors here coming on to mainly Facebook groups, but a few on Twitter as well, who are and some of them are picking up on what's happening in America, and also using the hashtag we vape, we vote. Bit of a mouthful. So there's a renewed energy. There's 2 petitions before government. Nancy of the Aotearoa Vape Consumer Group has put a petition that's got over 16,000 signatures against the banning flavors, and also the ACT Party, which is a very, right libertarian viewed party. They also have their own petition running as well. So anyone in New Zealand should sign both of those if you want to support the vaping community.
Amazing. Sorry, Chris, was there any more questions? I had to, please excuse me for running away, but was there any
chasing your cat? You were chasing your cat.
No questions. There's definitely a lot of love. I want to make sure, Dr. Glover, that you do know everyone in the chat is very appreciative for you being here and the inspiration that you provide as a professional aspect with an educated opinion with these subjects.
I
Thank
think
you.
is Son of Liberty. That's Patrick, right? He's asking Dr. Glover about the hashtag she tried to start, and to tell you that he asked about it.
Oh yeah, bot shit. Yeah. So it's not a bot. Hashtag not a bot. Hashtag bot shit. So I don't know that I really answered your question about that, but as I said, it was part of discrediting vapors. The dehumanizing, as you said, and I think it's handy to just sort of add hashtag not a bot. I think there's other, technical people could probably help in terms of ways to tweet. So I think, to make it very clear you're not a bot, don't just retweet other people. Make sure you've got some personal stories in there. Have a photo of you with your cat. And, maybe as I was tweeting this morning, I'm putting up Twitter tips because there are so many new people who are joining Twitter. And, please fill in your profile so we know a little bit more about you. And don't just retweet other people. Have your say something.
Yeah.
And you've got a global audience. So how about a picture of, I don't know, your beach, or where do you live? Is it desert? Is it a sunset? Something. Tell us something about where you live, because it's a community, and we're all intrigued about each other and want to know a bit more about each other. So that helps to make it obvious you're not a bot, you're a real person. There's a lot of accounts that just have, the little icon picture is some graphic, and you've got that banner. I think it's easier to be seen as a bot if there's nothing that shows that you are real.
Yeah. Well, there's so many
Especially
people.
Because if it's such a big deal, if anyone here doesn't realize it, that they're trying to dehumanize us and call us bots because they are so used to humans, those that were in power, being so submissive that when you're not, there's no way that it can be like a real movement, because whether or not you believe it, these people that are in charge of your countries or the whole world basically thought that you would just take whatever they said by, with what it is and go with it. And that's how you know for sure that everything that you're doing, tweeting, posting, all this stuff is making a difference, because you're scaring them that there's no way that you can actually believe in something enough to fight for it.
I think, the stats tell us totally there are millions of people in the world who vape. So we all know you're there. That this is quite deliberately trying to shut you down and shut you up. So yeah, if you have people in the community who are a bit more tech savvy around Twitter, and it's the criteria they're using for classifying people as a bot, and please post the tips about I'm not an expert in Twitter. I've just been doing it for a while, and
I was just blown away by, particularly again, on the tangent of that, with a lot of the information that Amelia put out on Twitter in that original thread of, what was taken away from her interview, I guess. I mean, even, if you had half a brain and you were looking at what Kevin was tweeting for the last 6 weeks, how is a bot possible to write any of that? Or, any of these prolific Twitter tweeters? I mean, you can't make up that stuff. And even if you looked at the timeline of when people were responding to, a bogus study or the Surgeon General's, situations. I mean, people are on it. How is that, fabricated or curated? It's just, all you need to do is look into it,
Yeah, I don't know how Twitter are doing that, or Facebook. We've about this issue of not boosting our posts. We wrote, they're like, no, we wrote, we appealed, and at some point you must get a real person and not a bot on their end. But no doubt they're using a measure of automation, to deal with shadow banning people. The other thing, I guess, is you can report tweets. You can, if they're abusive and stuff, and it might be that the ones that want to dehumanize and silence and discredit vapors are using services that do that report what you're saying. They're trying to have it make out that you're all marketing product to young people, you're targeting young people. They'll be lobbying Facebook and Twitter that's clear, to stop this. And I think even Canada for a while there was looking at banning Facebook forums that were about vaping. And certainly researchers in New Zealand who originally were quite anti-vaping, in their surveys they've often asked the question about, should we ban internet sales? Should we ban, allowing people to bring tobacco in by mail? So the internet is on the radar because it's just become really hard to control populations, to control your citizens when they're freely talking with people all over the world 24/7.
Because they don't like that.
Well, you're not hearing what they want you to hear. You're not, the echo chamber, we have to crack the shell of these echo chambers, and we need more people to think critically, listen to people who have different views. This is what I'm learning so much all the time from Twitter and different people's views. And I saw one tweet where somebody said it's not THC vaping, because lots of people are tweeting it's not nicotine vaping. The illnesses and deaths is not about nicotine vaping. It's about THC vaping. And this person said, no, it's not THC vaping. It's contaminated.
Specific
THC carts. And I was like, yes, that's right, because we're just doing the same thing to THC vaping. If we go, it's THC vaping.
Yeah.
No, it's fraudulent operators, black market, drug pushers, same old, and they're just exploiting the popularity of vaping cannabis or dabbing cannabis. And the carts that are doing the damage are contaminated. They've cut it with stuff. They're laced. And that's what we need to clarify, even when we're saying it's not nicotine vaping. It's not THC vaping either.
Yeah.
It's that
legal things.
Yeah, it's specificity of words, I suppose. We need to get clearer with our words. And
yeah. Well, my health minister can't even say Gottlieb, so that's not we're not in a good place.
I'm so sorry for Australia. It's hard to know what we can do in another country.
Yeah.
When I think I wrote quite some time ago about that old tobacco control, and just have it. Have Australia in like a crocodile grip, and just rolling you and rolling you and rolling you down to the bottom of the creek where, I just don't know how you're going to break out of it. It's only a very small minority of people who have the stranglehold on the whole of the tobacco control sector over there.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to ask how you envisage. Let's fast forward 5 years now. Where do you see things in 5 years?
For
the situation we're in now, for vaping, for harm reduction, for a change of pace. Will it be Armageddon? Worse? What's
Vapageddon?
Yeah.
I think sometimes things get worse before they get better. The evidence is going to keep building that, like Ricardo Pelosa's work, people are experiencing a reversal from ill health or disease they're getting better. And even though they're vaping, they've stopped smoking. We've always said smoking is one of the worst things you can do for your health. And so if you stop smoking, you should, unless you've already got a disease and it's progressing in a bad way, you should experience some improvement. Then there's all the other stuff that goes with stopping smoking, like starting to maybe get fit and doing new activities and joining different groups and being around different people. And so I think that the millions will become, that will double, triple, quadruple the millions of people who have been helped by vaping, the millions of people who will continue to switch over. The truth is out there about the disease and deaths around these contaminated THC cartridges. How to keep that, that's a specific problem. That's a problem about cannabis use and the black market that's developed around the normalization of cannabis in America. And we might have that happen here. We're have a referendum on cannabis legalization next year. We've got a lot of pressure to legalize cannabis here. So I think we need to be thinking, well, how are we going to prevent that situation happening here? I think so. The truth is out. Now it's just a matter of getting that disseminated out to everybody. A whole lot of people have gone back to smoking. Some people have quit vaping, and they haven't gone back to smoking, or they didn't smoke in the first place. So, if you don't smoke and you don't vape, stay like that if you can. But if you're going to relapse to vaping nicotine, not to smoking cigarettes. And the other thing is, I think we're going to see a more innovation, despite America potentially shutting down innovation there. The innovation will continue in other countries around the range of products. And one product that nobody ever talks about is this little one. This is, if you can see that, it's a Danish product. It's called Oliver Twist. And I'm not going to open it, but I'll get the little packet. I don't know if you can see. They're just like little little tobacco bits.
Yeah, right.
Little plugs. Yeah, for chewing, for putting in the mouth. Now, these are banned in New Zealand because the government ages ago banned chewing tobacco, and any chewing tobacco you put in your mouth for chewing. And so this product is not legal here. But I think we will see there are existing products that people will increasingly move to. I'm seeing in communities like in Fiji, where the price of commercial, British American tobacco cigarettes is going up, the indigenous Fijians are moving back to smoking their own tobacco they had growing there before. And we will, in America, in Norway, in Finland, we're seeing people move from smoking, because that message is getting out there, and partly thanks to the vaping community. What you're doing is this mass media anti-smoking campaign. It's not anti-smoking, but you're teaching people about the harms of smoking, and more people are switching to the far less harmful, greatly risk-reduced products, snus, smokeless, the heated tobacco products. We will see a broadening of the range of things. And the other thing, because of the bans on vaping inside, which we're facing here when the law comes, so there'll be all these places people can't vape. And this is where all of these other products are going to come into play. So people vape, and then they're going to need some snus or tobacco bits, or they'll use patches and gum. So where they can't vape, they use these other things. So I think there'll be a wider range of products. I think that vape shops are where the expertise sits, or will sit in the future. I think that government-run stop smoking services are pretty much redundant. Where there are in New Zealand, there's now very good vape shops almost throughout the country.
Yeah.
And the stop smoking service is probably almost redundant when people can go to their local vape shop, which is far more convenient at any time. You don't have to book an appointment and get far superior sort of help with product. And also many vape shops are, there's more training now for vape shops and actually how to help people match that nicotine level and successfully transition across. I'm going to be designing an online training course for vape shops.
Wow.
Yeah, and just to test an online model, so that we will see more and more expertise concentrated in vape shops. And so I really hope that vape shops, I know some of them are like purists, vaping, it's vaping. But I really hope that in the future, vape shops see themselves as the harm reduction place to be, and that they carry a range of product, because so they carry the smokeless product and maybe the some of the heated tobacco products as well. We've got this whole thing to get around of the industry. I see it happening here. The industry already had all their distribution systems in place, but I really do think that wherever cigarettes are sold, the alternative, healthier version, of nicotine should be there as well, and should be, because here in New Zealand, and I think also in Australia, the cigarette packets are locked away in a grey cupboard, and there's no, very little point of sale or no point of sale advertising.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to see is that the vaping products, the greatly reduced risk products, there is point of sale advertising, and that's what you see. So people can come in and they can go, can I have my, packet of cigarettes? But, staring them in the face or just over here, I've seen an ad about that.
Yeah.
That's one of those. Everyone knows what vaping is now in New Zealand and in America, thanks to Mitch Seller and his advertising of vaping to every school kid in every school and putting his posters through all the toilets.
Yeah. Here in the States, I've gone to hearings here locally for stuff like that, and I can guarantee you over half of the kids that they brought there that was paid for on these buses didn't hear about vaping and knew about it until they were used as pawns in this political thing. And now you're putting it, you're advertising it in the schools. Vape shops don't advertise. We can't advertise. It's just like tobacco products, to where like we can't do radio ads, can't do that. And then now on the radio here in Las Vegas alone, every morning you hear the vape, vape, vape. You go outside of the school, vape, vape, vape. You go outside of the gas station, then you see the jewel. You're like, oh, I wonder if it looks good because I saw this kid on this poster in my bathroom while I was trying to poop between PE, had a mango on it, and now I want to try it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've advertised it more than any industry has ever done in their
That's right. That's right. And they did it with tobacco as well. And so there'll be more vapors. If there is no fight left to, there's no social justice movement. If the fight, pretty much vapors have access to vaping products and everything's fairly smooth, then the whole social justice movement or the cause won't be there. So the vape community will maybe go back to being the hobbyists and expos and, the ones who are really in the industry, and the fun side of it. It'll go back more to that. And so it will feel like, the community's, gone, but it won't be. It'll just transform and be like that place that people come from out in the cold, dirty smoker, leper type existence that we have forced them into, to, yay, now I'm being welcomed into this new community. And so there'll still be that. And I think the vaping community will understand that they have a role to be there, like you said, to welcome them people back in, to be the valuable members of society that they already are, but at the moment they're just being abused and spat on.
Perhaps even with all of the situation of, like as you said, you've got to hit rock bottom before we come through it. Perhaps that might also change the mindset of a little more responsibility with, say, some of the advertising, or being bestowed with the situation of, you're actually can tell a customer that walks into a store that you can actually there are a few key statements that you're allowed to say, as opposed to being muted across the board for health situation.
That's right. Yeah. You can always talk about cost, because it's a huge cost saving for people, especially maybe not so much the pod systems, because that's all about, well, we've got our customers, they're paying $15 a day or every couple of days, and we want to we don't want them to redirect that fund. So pod systems maybe not so much, but definitely some of the people that start on the pod systems will if cost is still an issue, they might be open to moving on to the open systems and the mods, where they can save a lot more money, assuming the law still allows that.
Yeah. Or even this morning, I think it was Massachusetts was trying to implement the bill. Is it Massachusetts? Excuse me, I'm completely wrong there. There was a bill trying to be passed this morning that would effectively put the products higher tax than combustibles. I don't know if that's to the House of Representatives, but that's an interesting situation. Something is far less harmful that is going to be taxed harder than combustibles. So same again. Hopefully that gets shut down and there's at least some common sense regulation.
Yes, well, again, just going back to the Smith and Malone paper, they address this whole issue of the tax on combustible products, and why can't we ban cigarettes, and the argument that, well, it's all about the money, so governments are not going to want to let go of that huge income they're getting from these products, and they promote, well, we've got to start putting forward replacement revenue, and I'm already seeing that in public health with them going after the sugar and wanting to tax sugar, and that won't be the end of it. So when you guys are saying to people, look, if you might not care about what they're doing to us, but they're going to come after something you do next, and that's where it is. This is a bigger issue. That's madness to tax a greatly reduced product at a higher rate. That's totally to stop people moving to it.
Yeah.
Well, they did that here in Nevada. It's kind of like a backdoor deal that they ended up passing. At first, they had the bill where they were going to introduce, where they're going to tax us at a wholesale level and at a floor level of every product you have on your shelf at 30%, which would totally put you out of commission for it. And they had a public hearing for it. We go there, we showed support. They also busted children. And then it didn't look like it was going to go well for them. And then what they ended up doing, without letting any of us know until they passed it, is they went back and amended a bill and then included that a part of it, so it didn't have to be spoken on. So there was no opposition.
Yeah, it's we're very lucky to have Greg. We need more lawyers helping on this, because I just found something recently when I was looking at the tax and the effect on robberies, that this wild west situation of robberies of corner stores for tobacco, cigarettes, and found a footnote in a report saying that the New Zealand government reduced the amount you could grow your own from 15 kilos a year for your own personal use to 5. I never heard about that. I don't think anybody probably heard about it. It was just slipped in some bill sometime.
We could pay it out.
Yeah, it's like, how do you get to? They can just change laws without telling the citizens.
Yeah.
So this is this corruption and this sneakiness. We need people everywhere in all sorts of disciplines, lawyers and helping.
We're so appreciative that you would join us, Marewa. Thank you so very much. I guess we've been on almost 2 hours, and conscious of your time. And you gentlemen have anything else we'd like to finish with before we might start thinking about wrapping this up?
Just very thankful that you're here and to get to be a part of it. And then especially from your professional and educated standpoint, there's nothing else that you could do that's more helpful to us. So thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to second that. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your time. I know I've been very quiet, but I'm just kind of in awe and just listening and absorbing. I think it's much more important sometimes to take in than to put out. And I'm again just grateful that you came.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me back on again, and I hope it is useful, especially with so many new advocates joining, to help, and they're really hungry for what can they do, and we need to get that information out there, help bring them up to speed, and I just keep saying, like, you're the ones with the power, and you've got to tell your stories and talk to your local politicians, your doctors, your nurses, your families, and your hairdressers, everybody, let people know that what vaping has done for you. And I know that each of you are helping many other, I don't know what the number would be, but each vapor helps family, friends, and so many others. And the vape shops, you're helping thousands. So you're doing our job for us, for public health. And I'm certainly grateful, even if other people aren't. And, if it means that there's no more need for people doing tobacco control and, those kind of campaigns anymore, great, because there's a lot of other health issues we could move on to.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good point. Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much, Dr. Glover, and thanks everyone in the chat. Sorry, I'm sure the fellows have been onto the chat, but I haven't written one thing and I've been ignoring everybody. So we thank you very much. Thank you. Hopefully share this video around, get it on the replay, because I'm probably going to watch this myself because there were some things there that I was missing because I was thinking of something else. But, we really appreciate your time, Dr. Glover. Thank you so much.
Okay, keep up the good work and kia kaha, stay strong.
Awesome. All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Awesome.
Got it.
All right. Wow. An incredible human. I think we're still on, so I'm going to end the stream. And thank you very much, everyone.
Have a good night, guys.